And you're very welcome along to another edition of Tipp Cast with myself, Shane Brophy, joined once again by Noel Dundon, and this week joined by special guest, former Tipperary All-Ireland winning defender Eamon Corcoran. Gents, we're just briefly chatting before we press the record button. Kind of a surreal week, as I said to Eamon and Noel. As much as Cork were stunned by the events of last Sunday, I still think a lot of Tip people are still stunned. Like, not just not to say we won. Like, I think we always had a chance, but just the manner of how it happened, and this was to have the year we had coming from. I'd say you can't say rank outsiders, but we weren't even in the loop to win an All Ireland. Like, you think and like that, you would say that within the county, like to then come and do it. It would probably go down as probably maybe the sweetest of all. I personally rank it ahead of 2010 now, which I think was number one for a lot of people before that.
Yeah, it's like being asked to choose your favorite child, isn't it? You know, I suppose, Shane, like you and I were both in the press box, and there was a kind of a surreal atmosphere up there because, you know, so many fellas in the box had predicted a Cork victory and nothing more. But one of the things that really struck me was that probably one of the most experienced Tipperary journalists that we have in our ranks at the moment was JJ Kennedy of the Nationalist and website column, and JJ kept saying, "I'm pinching myself trying to see is this actually happening, you know?" And it was a little bit like that, because while most of us in Tipperary went up to Croke Park with a lot of hope and maybe with a small bit of confidence that if we were there in the last kind of 10 minutes of the game, that we're in with a real shout. But none of us could have predicted that with 20 minutes to go, the match was won. Albeit it would be a long 20 minutes, and you never know what Cork would do. But Cork were gone with 20 minutes to go. The heads were gone, and everything that could go wrong for them had gone wrong for them. And you know, it was just a brilliant place to be, you know.
Yeah, Eamon, I don't know what part of the ground you were in at the weekend, and your vantage point of things, your recollections of the weekend.
Yeah, as I was saying to you earlier, the only word I think we're all using at the moment is unbelievable, because I like at halftime, I still felt at halftime we were still in the game. Like, in fairness, like, they weren't opening us up. We had left a good bit behind. Our first touch was slightly off, but that was about it. But before the game, you talk to a number of people, and I know it's easy to say now, but I was surprised that everyone had Cork so far ahead, because if you take a step back, like this year, and take the first performance against Limerick, we absolutely tore into them. I kind of put aside the Cork performance, Darren McCarthy sending off, but we went back, we bet Clare, we bet Waterford, we bet Kilkenny, we bet Galway, and like a third of our team had All-Ireland medals going into that. No one in Cork team had All-Ireland medals, and we were kind of saying, we're a young team. And you look down through the age profile of the team, like the experience that was in the team, Noah McGrath, the sideline, Liam Cahill and Mikey Beavens, what they were building. I absolutely get last year. Like, if you told me at the end of last year that we were going to go unbeatable against a lot of those teams, even draw against Limerick, I would have said, not a chance. But then, like, we were building, like, with a huge semi-final, like, and Cork were going in like after a Munster final, and then Dublin. I think the Limerick Dublin game caught everyone, and then Cork coming in after performance against Dublin, which, you know, very hard to judge, put in 7 goals. But from the word go, I think we came out again. We got the tactics right, and in fairness to the lads, you call it, having Brian O'Mara sitting, we can say +1 sweeper covering off the left. Cork just didn't adapt. You talk about game management. They were throwing the ball over the shoulder, and you could see the Cork crowd at times getting anxious. And within the half time, then we were 6 points down. And everyone is saying, and I know, the Patrick Horgan, it was a turning point, but it was a big moment. We can't deny that. Like, you missed a free there that he normally scored. That's 7 points. And I think the big moment then, Conor Staken was doing a great job in the first half until my man, he wasn't hitting any ball, but he was doing his job. He was taking him out of the game. He got the next point. Andrew Ormond, who in the first half, through Andrew's standards, probably wasn't on the ball and wasn't sticking, he got the next 2 points. So we had 2 more lads really in the game, and it just built from there. And you talk about psychology in a game. Like, I firmly believe all these lads are the same fitness levels. They're the same first touch. They're inter-county players for a reason. Cork Tip players always have a lovely touch. Like, But the difference here now is a team just mentally when they froze. The sideline as well. I looked over one stage and the Cork sideline, they nearly had the backs to the field trying to figure out what moves to make, what to do next. That was surprising because you have people up in the stand looking down. Like, it's very hard for Pat Ryan to make decisions on the sideline. He's a backroom team who should be able to make all these moves. It should be A, B, C, D, E. If Tipp do this, we do this. You don't be reactive the whole time. How do we be proactive on it? But like, not to expect Tipp to set up the way they did was surprising from a Cork backroom team. But I think we've all been there when a team got a run at us and we froze and you tried to get a reset moment and settle. And to get 2 points and Tipp, what was it, 3-14? I don't think if anyone said that was going to happen, even at a club level, you'd question it.
Yeah, I know some of it, probably the 2 points is the fact that they were trying to force goals in the last 15 minutes and they left scores. And look, we did get the rub of the green like 4 times, hitting the posts. And I think that the first one from Darragh Fitzgibbon ended up in the goal at the other end of the field. And I wasn't the only one. There's been a few people have remarked it, even in articles this week, that Seanie Leary and John Sheedy in '84 came back to mind. Like, it took 41 years for us to come back, and like I said, John Sheedy was a happy man this week to think of. It finally came full circle for us. I suppose I remember we were gathered, a few of us, at half time, and I was saying, God, yeah, we're not too bad. And I was even remarking that usually a goal before half time is a sickener. But I said, oh, Jesus, actually great. Because Cork usually get goals in bunches, so they couldn't actually build on it. And it was actually, we were able to go in, refocused. And I'd say, and I think a few players remarked on it after that, I was actually surprised to hear them mention that they had a target of being within 6. I would have said maybe that's while it's a bit defeatist, but you normally don't do things like that because you could hold yourself to hostage to fortune, but like, it did. We came out a new team in the second half, and I actually think we went man for man in the second half. I don't think we played the +1 for a lot of it. I think there was a change that Craig, or Brian, went as the man marker on Shane Barrett early in the second half, because Barrett had. I suppose he was the one that was, and Dermot Healy, who was really causing us trouble in that first half.
Yeah, you, as you say, Shane, you had made that point in the room underneath the stand there at half time, and the point, I suppose, that I would have made was that at that stage we had a goal disallowed and we had a goal chance missed by Owen Connolly, so it was kind of showing us that we had a way as well, that we were actually in that game and were creating chances too. But I thought a really, really crucial thing from a Tipperary perspective. And you talk about momentum. Cork got the goal, half-time comes. But immediately after half-time, Patrick Horgan missed the free, and then they struck the upright. If they had gone 8 points in front, it would have been a different story, I think. And it would more or less have shown that they had regained the momentum after half-time. And I think it would have been a different story. But, it's history now. We went down and we scored 1-5 without reply to put ourselves right back into the game. And it was incredible to see how the game shifted in those few minutes. Like, at half time, we were 6 points down. By 15 minutes into the game, into the second half, we had the game won and the game was over. Cork weren't coming back. And it was an incredible about turn. But I think, Eamon alluded to it there, with the amount of things that we got right on the sideline was it was unreal for an All-Ireland final for so many things to come off right for you in the second half. And, when you listen to all the interviews from the players during the week following the game, and that, you particularly recall one with Owen Connolly where he described how the A and B match that they played in training, and the B team was set up as Cork were going to set up in the final. And he was put marking Joe Fogarty because he was a like-for-like player. And that's incredibly advanced thinking, like, from a management point of view. And you would just have to say hats off to them, because they knew exactly what they wanted to do. But what that also told me, Shane, was that not only were our first 15 or 18 or 20 players really clued in, but the other 25 in the panel that made up the 40, they bought into this totally. and they were prepared to do in training what they were being asked to do, even though they were being asked to do what Cork were expected to do. And from a Cork perspective, it seems to me very, very strange that Cork never anticipated that Tipp would do something different. And like, I suppose I was kind of likened a little bit to the 2014 final, where I think we learned a hell of a lot from Páirc Uí Chaoimh in both the league final and in the first round of the championship. And we learned a lot about Cork, and we adapted our game in the final to suit that. In 2014, we went toe-to-toe with Kilkenny in a fantastic drawing match, and it ended up a draw and a replay. We came back 3 weeks later. Kilkenny changed their tact totally. We didn't. We tried to win the game in the same way. And I think Cork tried to win the All-Ireland in the same way that they had won the two previous clashes in the league and in the championship. But our lads on the sideline had outsmarted them and had out-taught them, I suppose, really. Yeah,
I suppose, Eamon, it's probably something that Cork will have to reflect on this week. And I bring it back to the point you made earlier about Tipp's run. And even if you look at Cork's run this summer, like, brilliant against Clare for half, but then collapsed in the second half and were fortunate to get a draw, take out the Tipp game. They were terrible against Limerick. Like, I don't think you can write off in championship. Like, you can't just turn up like that for Limerick and throw an egg. Like, as good as Limerick were, Cork laid an egg that day. I thought they were very vulnerable against Waterford. Waterford played slightly more attack and set up that day. I thought Waterford could have won that game. Sometimes I think they were only playing one up top and flood in the middle. Like, there was times where I think they had only one inside. Like, and then of course the Dublin game. And I have actually a different point of view. Like, while they didn't get much of a test against Dublin, I thought they were incredibly, incredibly sharp that day. Everything was coming off, and you probably know it from playing and managing teams. And I always think it's very hard to, if you play an outstanding game, it's very, very hard to play an outstanding game the next time you trot up. So that was, if from a Cork point of view, that would have worried me how sharp they were against Dublin, because you couldn't be that sharp 2 weeks later.
Yeah, and look, Dublin probably, after beating Limerick, like their standards did drop, and was that down to Cork's performance? I was watching that day as well. Everything stuck for Cork through the lines, but like, sometimes when you come up, the pace of intercounty at times can just go to another level. Yeah. That pace of a game, I felt it was slow enough. It was just Dublin didn't get up. And then if Dublin don't come up to a level, there's certain teams out there will destroy you. They will destroy. And Cork are one of those teams. We saw in the league final when we went down there, when we weren't up to the pitch of it. They absolutely blew us away. But then, you rightly said there, you look back to some of the results this year, like Limerick destroyed Cork at one stage, and then even the amount of goals they conceded against Clare, like, when they were playing well, they were playing brilliantly. Yeah. But actually, when they dropped off at all and weren't running the ball through the lines, they looked an average team.
They seemed to have no plan B. If it was as if the three boys inside don't win it for us, they had no plan B. That once we had the three boys inside nailed that. Okay, Barrett and Diarmuid Healy to a lesser extent did contribute, but like Fitzgibbon and O'Mahony were largely marked out of the game. Mark Coleman wasn't allowed trot forward to create sort of over. Well, he did, and he got the goal. Like, the one time maybe they did maybe create a numbers overload that got the goal, but we restricted those opportunities.
Yeah, but the matchups for us were right. Like, Willie Connor's move and Declan Dalton, that was brilliant. Like, he took him out of the game. Declan Dalton is a kind of a player that likes that, bully a player on him. You watch him there. We saw him there before matches, and I won't get into a few things there. Willie Connor, you won't bully Willie Connors. And going in at half time, Willie Connors laid down a marker again. I like to see that. You know what I mean? And Rhys Shelley in the goal, when they got the goal, it wasn't okay, we're lying down here. Rightly or wrongly, he actually stood up to Horgan and said, yeah, that's the last of that. So you could see the body language of our players. We're not going to be bullied today. And Cork are a team that like to actually, I won't say showboat because they're brilliant at, but they like to play that lovely hurling. And we just didn't allow that. And just going back to Noel's point about A versus B games, we've always said that when teams win All Ireland, you nearly always revert to the conversation of the great Kilkenny teams go down there and watch the A versus B games. Like, the role the panel players have to play on teams when their atmosphere is right and Liam creates the right culture and all the players are buying into the one direction we're going. That was obviously done because it can be difficult as a player on the B panel, if that's what you want to say. This is your role today. You're acting as a Galway player or a Limerick player. This is what you have to do. But I've always said it. Your role in the panel is to make the player you're marking a better player. And obviously, Joe Fogarty did that for Owen Connolly, the example he gave earlier. That's a great sign of where a panel is going. And like to lift them up off the ground where they were last year and to get them to that level where you're getting to, you're in an All-Ireland final and you have everyone on the panel buying into to what the number one goal is to win All-Ireland. And they did that. So I just think we're going to hear more and more what took place in training sessions. And you're hearing, there's some crazy talk out there. You're hearing, like I saw a message there what took place in the Cork dressing room. At halftime, I personally, I struggle with things like that. But there is going to be stuff that will be.
I couldn't believe it at halftime. No.
Yeah, no. You're 6 points going in, and like there's always a comment in the dressing room or something happening. Someone will exaggerate, but like certainly I could be wrong, but I think that kind of talk. But I'm more interested now what took place in our dressing room at halftime, what took place in our training sessions coming up to the match, what like Angelo Walsh, S&C, all these guys, like everyone had a role in that backroom panel. Like you look at the selectors, so Mikey Beavens, everyone had a massive role there. So I'm more interested in seeing what did they do from last year right now to build, and then nail it in a second half performance in an All-Ireland final. That's one that any coach out there, trainer, doesn't matter, leader, everything you're looking for, you're actually taking a step back on what worked.
Yeah, and I remember just after the Cork goal, and I think Liam Gordon was in talking to his umpires, and I remember looking at I think Michael Breen and Ronan Maher in full back line. They were revved up. They were geeing up their colleagues out the field, anticipating one more play. And I said, God, these lads are tuned in. The leadership of these guys is incredible. Like they were ready for all eventualities. That they knew if Cork got a goal at any stage, that the next 5 minutes were going to be critical, and not to let another one in. And like that was the half time. It came at the right time too. It helped them along that way. And I say that second half, once we got going, once we got Conor Stakelum got the point, Andrew Ormond, a couple of things went wrong for him in the first half, but once he got the first score, you could see him just take off, and he really put Robert Downey on the back foot.
Yeah, he did, Shane, and I suppose in mentioning Andrew Ormond and probably Jake Morris as well in the forward line, and Willie Connors as well to another degree, you'd have to mention Rhys Shelley and the puck outs from Rhys Shelley in that second half, which were top class, and indeed in the first half they were top class as well.
The one to Willie Connors that he got his point from was
exactly that's the one that
pressure. I think he might have 4 points down at that time.
Yeah, and like Willie Connors was playing a wing back at that stage, and found himself off up the field. I also recall, but I think like Tip played with a lot of freedom in that sense, and I also recall Robert Doyle in the second half making a run off up the field, and he was manhandled out over the sideline. The referee went over and dealt with it. I think he gave him both yellow cards, which I have no idea what Robert Doyle got the yellow card for. And immediately when play resumed, Robert took off down the line again to take the ball, take the same ball again. So I think it kind of all of this sort of stuff showed us that Tipperary were really, really well prepared for this game, really tuned in. You mentioned Michael Breen and Ronan Maher after that goal went in, and you're dead right. There was a sort of a show of resilience there that we're not letting another one go here. This isn't going to be another goal. Cork had a second one before halftime and we were in big trouble. And that had just come. I think that Cork goal came very, very quickly after the Owen Connolly miss. After the disallowed goal, I should say.
Yeah,
the square ball. Yeah. So it was effectively like a 6-point swing at that stage, but we didn't allow it to upset the mindset as we went in at halftime. And it was also noticeable. I mean, look, as Eamon alluded to there's a lot of news coming out of the Cork camp or otherwise. Is it fake news? Is it real? Who knows anymore? But it was also telling, I thought, that we were out on the field quite a bit before Cork in the second half. In fact, so much so that I never saw Willie Connors getting that yellow card, and I had no idea what.
No, I neither did I.
I had no idea what Dalton got the yellow card for either. Only I was told afterwards when they said, what was that for? That there had been an incident in the tunnel. which probably brings into play another situation in Croke Park. I mean, many more incidents in the tunnel that we're going to see. We'll have to get a tunnel cam, I think, in there, so we'll be able to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I suppose the second half, Eamon, and I suppose the first goal, and I just think I think we've seen it a lot this year, and I should probably epitomise also the difference between Cork and Tip on the day. Like, the ball comes down and just a heavy touch from Collins, but John McGrath, I watched it back. Like, John McGrath anticipated it. Owen Downey was asleep. Owen Downey didn't anticipate the danger. John McGrath saw the opportunity in the same way Mossy Keown saw two opportunities against Galway when he nipped in. Like, the day of you as a forward, you've got to anticipate those breaks. Like, none of the Cork forwards anticipated the balls coming off the post. You've still got to make that run, because the day you don't make it is the day the opportunity would have presented itself. And like, the fortune favours the brave with John McGrath. And the coolness of that finish was incredible.
I'm just laughing when you're saying John McGrath anticipated it. That wouldn't be like John McGrath, would it? Like, the man is just, he's on a different level. Sorry, so like, we won't get into Noah McGrath, but John McGrath, like, he's hurling brain. It's just like, has he lost that yard of pace since the injury? And it was a horrific injury. Yeah, probably. But like, you're watching him there and he's tracking back, and he's smart enough. He knows his strengths, and he knows the areas he's not as strong. You know what I mean? And his strength all day, every day, is just getting off the shoulder, anticipating where the ball is going to break. Like, I think if it was any rest of us, we'd be taking lumps out of Croke Park trying to pull in that ball into the back of the net. He just slowed it down. He reminds me a lot of Declan Ryan, if I'm being honest with you. You know the way some of us are going 100 miles an hour, then you have players out there to just bring it right down. They're still going 100 miles an hour hurling, but in their head, they would slow it down. That's what John McGrath is. He took the opportunity there. And also, like, if I'm being honest, like, the Cork full back line, like, they were in trouble there on down. Like, if you look, and Patrick Collins, like, I do rate him as a goalie. I think he'd probably his worst game I've ever seen him play. From a puck out point of view, there was mistake after mistake after mistake. And Noel, you alluded to Rhys Shelley's puck outs. Like, Rhys Shelley's puck outs were on point. Like, we spoke about Willie Connors when he gave to Willie Connors. I think every young lad out there, or every goalie in the country will try and replicate that puck out where he put it right in. But Patrick Collins wasn't getting any of those off. So you had John McGrath inside there, how he created a penalty. That catch. Oh my God, the way he took that down in Croke Park in front of 84,000 people, won the penalty, and then the flick for the goal. So, like, I know I'm going on a lot about John McGrath here, but I just think it's so important that where he's come from, like, mentally, to get him back to play, never mind play intercounty, back playing club hurling, and then to go to another level. And for me, I know Jake Morris's hurler of the year. I was up there for hurler of the year. I think he got the Sunday game. John McGrath will go fairly strong at that as well, because the year he had, and then, like, just I was watching there throughout championship, talking to Darren McCarthy there, like, if Andy Orme at first year in there, albeit he's 25 years of age, he turned into a real leader. But John McGrath was kind of talking all the guys into games, into moves, into positions. So like you said there about the goals there and the composure, it was just fantastic. And I just want to call out Andrew Ormond there. You just mentioned the first half, he did struggle a bit, but I certainly felt this year when he went in centre forward, he just, himself and Rhys Shelley probably for me were the two big changes from what was happening in the league and the championship. The puck outs from Rhys, but Andrew Ormond's movement at number 11, he strides like. The Borkin from Waterford, I'd say they never even thought of Andrew Ormond. Like, he just sat back, and so every team had to think differently with Andrew Ormond centre forward. And even when he came out to start the second half, he backed himself. Liam Cahill backed him. That movement across the half forward line created so many opportunities for other players to get into the game. And I think that's something that probably, when they say Andrew Ormond played well, for me, it wasn't just his individual performance, it's what he did to open up the whole forward line for Tipperary as the championship went on.
Yeah, and I suppose we talk about matchups and we might go back to the Tip ones, but I did think it was strange, Noel, that why did Cork not push on O'Donoghue and Darren McCarthy again? Like, were they trying to avoid potential controversy or what? Or did they, maybe they anticipated Darragh playing as sort of a coming out maybe towards the half forward line, and maybe they wanted to get Niall O'Neary further up the field, and look, he did get a point in the first half, but I did think that was a strange one. Like, you don't, I think Darragh would have been into, I suppose, under a small bit of pressure, and then maybe he's Sean O'Donoghue breathing down his neck, and then he sees a new guy on him. I'm sure he probably felt a lot more relaxed maybe when he discovered that early on.
Yeah, well, he certainly played like he was a lot more relaxed, Shane, didn't he? And in fact, relaxed is a word, because I was in quite early into Croke Park, and I was there when the team walked out onto the pitch before the match, just in their clothes and that, And I thought looking at Tipp that they were incredibly relaxed. In fact, there was lads walking over towards the stands and kind of waving up to their friends and their families and that, which was brilliant. I was really, really happy to see that they were relaxed like that. Going back to Cork and the matchups, there was some really strange stuff I thought happening. Granted, we threw a curveball and putting Willie Connors back on Dickie Dalton. Cork didn't do anything to try and counter that, and they possibly could have. Cork didn't do anything to try and counter the fact that Ronan Maher had Brian Hayes in his pocket, and even their standout forward, a shoe-in for Hurler of the year up to the All-Ireland final. They never even tried to move him out the field to try and get him going or get him into the game or anything like that, get him on a possession. They didn't do anything like that. And that was really strange for me. The other side of the coin is that Tipperary got the matchups absolutely spot on. And in doing that, in us bringing back Ronan on Hayes, we had Dial on Connolly. It was Breen was on Horgan, I think. Willie Connors on Dalton, Breen on Horgan. They were really, really well matched from a Tipperary perspective. But Cork did nothing to try and say, hang on, this isn't happening. This isn't the way. I know I'm maybe not going to go back to the situation with Pat Burke and Larry Corbett and Tommy Welch a few years ago in the All-Ireland semi-final. How do you do that? But I suppose I'm talking about maybe what was happening in the Cork forward line and our back line. You mentioned what was happening in the Cork back line and our forward line. I'm sure Darren McCarthy was relieved that Sean O'Donoghue didn't follow him. Robert Downey looked to me to be out of sorts as well. He caught a couple of balls early on. After that, he was just run out of it. And Eamon has rightly mentioned the role that Andrew Ormond has played. And I suppose I kind of, talking to a few people during the week, I was jokingly saying that the emergence of Andrew Ormond can be credited to Johnny Murphy for putting off Darren McCarthy down in Cork, because he got his place then, and by God did he take it. Had a terrific game down in Ennis when our backs are to the wall. And to me, Shane, the Ennis match was the turning point of this Tipp team. It was a real cauldron down there, and they stood up. And again, we talk about John McGrath, when Clare had put a number of scores together to bring it back to, I think, a point, maybe even level, did they, on the night? I'm trying to recall.
Level, yeah.
Yeah, ball went back up the field. John McGrath gets the ball out of the wing. Thinks about having a run to see will he go, but realises, I suppose, the legs aren't there, and he takes a pint to put us back in front immediately, and we plough on to the end. I think Tipperary learned a lot of hard lessons the hard way. And even you go back to last year, I was just looking at there during the week with the results that we had last year. It was probably significant that we finished the season last year with the Clare game, where we lost by 3 points in what was a dead rubber. Let's be honest about it. But I think had our season ended with the drubbing that we took off of Cork, there would have been a far different narrative in the Tipperary camp and in the county. Now it was difficult enough because of the way the year went, but I think the fact that we finished the Clare game with a bit of spirit maybe, and we lost by 3 points, we still lost it, but we finished it with a bit of spirit. And the lasting memory, I suppose, would be a 3-point defeat rather than whatever it was, 18-point defeat to Cork a couple of weeks later. I think that was very significant in the overall psyche of the panel, of the management, and probably of the county as well.
Yeah, I think Liam 1 point this year, he kind of referenced that game as he saw something in the group to say like that they could have it could have been a draw, and I think did we go 8 or maybe 10 points down against Clare, and like they fought back and they got it back to within 3, and that showed there was a bit of substance, even though the guys were struggling maybe in terms of their hurling, and but like the spirit was there. I suppose that they didn't want to end it like they did against Cork the week before, a drubbing at home, and like they were just ran through for a shortcut. But like, just it's hard to believe like how far they've come in that 14 months, and like was and credit to Liam and the players, like just picking it up bit by bit. And like I even remember like they had to hit the ground running in the league, and you can always go back to little points and like setting the tone in Pearse Stadium that Sunday, like, and like, okay, it was against a poor Galway side, but just getting off to a good start, that was important. I even remember the night against Laois and Templemore for the Mary's Meals fundraiser. Like I thought we were lean looking that day. I said there's a difference in Tip this year. I wasn't saying winning All Ireland, but we looked lean, we looked hungry, and look, it carried its way forward 7 months later.
Yeah, and another thing this year, I think, and in fairness, you talk about learning the whole time, and like I think players learn, management learn, but it did feel this year going in, whatever. I was in at that match as well, and when I came out after, I said, at the very same points you made there, I said, Tip, they look like a team that are just the strength in them. They look fast, and I don't know what you can compare to Laois, but there's something look different. But another point that I think is important to make is when we went into the championship last year, and I could have made it on this podcast at the time that I couldn't tell you who was in goal, who was in the half back line, who was the full back line, the whole way through the spine of our team. I always feel, and if you look at Premiership soccer or you look at whatever sport, teams that win All Ireland, you can nearly pick 14 to start and 15 every day you go out. And I think as the year was going on this year, like there was one or two changes on the team, but we had a consistent team starting there. Like, in fairness, I've great time for Barry Hogan as well. Barry and Reese, they fought out for position. Reese went out and did extremely well. But right throughout the spine of the team, we had consistency. Where the year before, I think Liam and the management team, they were trying to, who's our best centre back, who's our best midfielder, half forward, like, and the players now could adapt to every position as the year went on. But this year did feel different from the word go, and that could be back to the point Noel made in relation to Clare last year. But if we also take a step back, being ready to see out matches and close out matches. The last number of matches we played were knockout games, because when we played Clare down in Ennis, that was essentially a knockout game. Like, down in Ennis, that is, of all the places I've ever played, Jesus, it's like, they're in on top of you. If you can play there, you can play anywhere, right? Then there was, I know with score difference and everything, the Waterford game, you could have said if things got wrong, you could have been gone. Then obviously the Galway game, Kilkenny, they were all knockout games coming right up to, so we were well prepped to actually, from a prep point of view, and even Liam, they adapted. I remember going into whatever was the Tip supporters this year, a call to arms. I don't know what it was, but I was in, what match was it, inside in Thurles, and the team bus, and the Tip crowd it's nearly turned into tradition now, all surrounded the bus, and the roar of the Tip crowd when the players are getting off the bus. Never underestimate what that means for players. You're coming off there, and you nearly have tears in your eyes going, Jesus, this is... It's unbelievable what I have a chance to do today for Tipperary. That gave him something. And I heard different things. The bus couldn't go into the tunnel. I don't know what the reason was in Croke Park as well.
No, it is actually, I think Glasheen's actually purchased a new bus recently. But
was that it? Well, I tell you one thing.
The air conditioning unit is on the top of the new bus, but it's too tall for the tunnel area. I think. But I think they'll do that walk every time from now on under Liam Sheedy.
Absolutely, because I actually thought it was a genius stroke. That is absolutely brilliant, because that's what the lads are used to now, coming off the bus and the Tip chant, tip, 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 and they're coming in there. It's brilliant. And just finally there, just Noel, you made a very, very valid point in relation to players coming out in the field. I watched the same thing, and normally there you're afraid because some of us, when you're out there, you don't want to look at the crowd, you don't want to anything, you're tensed up, and you feel that's what you have to do. But these players are going around, and it was like, you see some soccer players before matches, they're saluting the crowd. Our players were relaxed, and you said straight away, you know what, fair play to them. They're soaking up the atmosphere. And TJ Ryan, he was at a podcast during the week, and he probably summed the whole thing up. He said, Cork went up to lift the cup, Tip went up to win the cup. And that actually, when I listened to it, I said, that was Cork supporters feeding into the players, and it came out that way. That's what it actually, I think that summed up the whole thing, because by God, did we go up to win it.
Yeah, and like you mentioned the supporters, like it's great to see them re-engaged again. Like, they'll always engage with a winning team, but like even after the Clare game, Noel, the following week against Waterford, like there must have been 26,000 Tip fans in that crowd. Like, they came, and even in Portlaoise for a game that was done, the amount of people that were in Portlaoise that day, you would have said, God, hold your money for Limerick the following week against Galway. But no, like they there's one thing a Tip supporter loves. They love a winning team, but they love a Tip team that hurls in the way this team do. Like, there's no end to them. They're full of spirit, full of camaraderie. They really love the worker Tip hurler, the flashy Tip hurler.
Yeah, it's true, Shane, and it's dead right that when Tip supporters see that their men are fighting for the jersey and fighting to advance the cause, like, that's what they really want, you know. I mean, we all love stylish hurlers, but we all know that you can't have 15 Owen Kellys on the team either, or 15 Eamon Corcorans on the team. You know what I mean? You have to have the blend and the mix, and getting that mix is a challenge. It takes time and it takes patience. And maybe that's one thing that as Tip supporters we often don't have, is patience, you know. But I just think that you know, at the very start of the year, Liam set out his stall. I think there's an interview with yourself, Shane, where he said that he wanted to re-engage the Tipperary players with the supporters and get the supporters behind the team fully. And he was putting it back on the players and said that if that's to happen, it has to come from the players representing the jersey in an appropriate manner. And he had felt that the year before, last year, that we didn't actually get to that level. But by God, did they get to this year. And you know, you take those two beatings from Cork in the league final and in the championship, and it could easily have been a situation where players would turn away, where supporters would turn away and say, no, that team is going nowhere, and we're not going to spend our few bob going down to Ennis, or we're not going to follow them to wherever. But it didn't happen that way. They stayed with them, and you know, the Limerick performance and the way that we came back, that probably also helped to cement the strength in support as well. In fact, just one other quick point, and Eamon alluded to the preparation. I thought it was noticeable all year that Tipperary finished both halves in most of their games very strong. Right, Cork got that goal in the All-Ireland final, but we still had finished a half very strong. I think that's a lot of that the credit for that has to go down to the SNC and Angelo Walsh and all that. Like that even though lads might have been gassed coming into the, you know, kind of 30-35 minute mark of both halves, we were still going strong, and I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked either, you know.
No, definitely not. No, and like, if it's Angelo, I think is he a minor All-Ireland one as an S&C. I think he was with the Kamogie team before you were involved in, and then
like, Boris Lee, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. No, he's very, very good, and just like, we're finishing to the end. I was just looking back, and you made your point earlier about a consistent team. The team that played Galway in the first round of the league, 10 of them that started that day were playing last Sunday. Like, so it just shows you. Like, there was that consistent 9 or 10 played the whole way through. Some guys come in, and like, you think Robert Dial in particularly, like I thought Michael Corcoran, we wish him well. Like, God, disaster for him doing his cruciate. I think it was the last play of that Saturday or Sunday training session last week that he did his cruciate. Like, so like, he had actually a very good first half against Galway in the league. Just felt a minor twinge in his hamstring, came off. Then Robert Dial comes in and has a brilliant second half and just takes off from there. Like, what a year, and like, I think he's shoe in for Young Hurler of the Year. Like, just his first year, and to dominate like that. I don't think it's Adam English has had a great year, but God, I think Robert Dial is just no contest for me.
I couldn't agree more. Agree more. Yeah, he's come in there, and unfortunately for Mike Cork, and Michael was doing very well in the league, and that injury. But it's back to the point you made earlier. Andrew Orman mightn't have been in if Darren McCarthy. There's different things like that. But you have to take your chance. Like, you come on. Oisin O'Donoghue, who did it all year when he came on, he came in and made a difference every time. But Robert Dial, and it just shows how the game has changed. Like, you alluded to earlier, Robert Dial running up the wing there as a cornerback looking for the puck outs. And then I suppose you can't be giving no about linesmen and referees, but I think the linesman was trying to make a name for himself there, getting Robert Dial booked there. At that instant, I was going, come on, will you? Like, you could see he was clearly being checked going up along the line. But it's back to the bravery that Liam has instilled in the team, because the days of us playing cornerback, you're pulling and dragging, you're afraid of your life to actually go outside the half back line in case you got a short puck out, where these lads did go up corner forward. And look, Robert he can play up the field as well, as we know with the club, but it was great for him. And Young Hurler of the Year, I think we're going to take senior and Young Hurler of the Year, like Jake Morris. We haven't really mentioned Jake Morris all year. I'm a huge fan of Jake Morris, because I do think, like, Jake would have had when he was coming up along, all the skills in the world, like he can do anything with the ball, anything. But the difference in Jake Morris this year, and probably last year as well, it's his work rate off the ball. Like he wasn't on too much ball in the first half, but if you actually, I say if there's a camera on him and watching the hits he puts in, like he sets a tone up there with just the energy, the work rate, and like every game throughout this year, he was just so consistent and has stood up as a massive leader in Tipperary.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth between Jake and John McGrath for Hurler of the Year all week, and I'm going on Jake for his full body of work. John sort of it's all more championship, where Jake since day one against Galway in the league. And I think I have to go back through his stats for the year. I'd say I would have said he probably played every league match. And the Laois game he was rested. He didn't play at all. He was always there. And no, I suppose the Cork game, the second Cork game when we were down to 14, like he got a pint in the second half where I think there was 2 or 3 times he could have lost the ball going forward, and he just kept it and he got the score. And I think that was, if there was one play in the whole year, I think epitomised the Tipperary team as a whole, it was probably that.
Yeah, it was
in a losing effort.
Yeah, and it was insignificant if he had lost it, you know. But as you say, he showed that kind of resilience. But I agree with all that Eamon and yourself have said in relation to Jake Morris. I would say one thing though. I think the addition of Andrew Ormond to that forward line really enhanced what Jake could do for us. Because I think we had Jake out at centre forward for a lot of the year, where he was coming under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attention from opposition defences, and suddenly Andrew comes in and takes over that role, and almost divides that kind of responsibility, if you like, between himself and Jake, and that gave Jake a lot of freedom. So I think if Jake Morris ends up as Hurler of the Year, a lot of it will be to do with what Andrew Ormond brought to the team when he came in there. But like Shane, I think you and I spoke about this before in a press box. I think possibly at one of the county championship games at one stage, that the difference in the shape of Jake Morris's body now in comparison to 4 or 5 years ago when he came into the panel first is unreal. You know, he's almost unrecognizable. When he came in as a real sort of a light kind of an attacker, now he has some bulk on him, but he hasn't lost his pace. What he has added is power and bravery and all of that. And I guess when you're as physically imposing as he is now, you're a lot braver going into tackles. You know, you're not going to be blown away. You're able to stand up to it and all that. So like that work doesn't happen easily. That's hard work. Yeah. That's a body of work in itself. Pardon the pun on the body end of it, but it's a huge thing, and it's the stuff that happens when you're on your own in the gym and working at the strength and conditioning and all that.
And it's self-driven too. Especially during the COVID years when you have to do it on your own. Like it's not easy, and you don't have somebody like I know Jake is one of those who's just. He's just so self-driven and he's so focused, and like I'm just delighted for him. Like I've seen him since he was 15, 16 years of age, and seen what he's turning. Like this is his 8th season, and he's still only just gone 26. Like he's probably only entering his prime now, Eamon.
Yeah, and just it's these players don't just turn up on championship day looking like this, and like. There's a huge sacrifice, and it's great to see the players and getting all the recognition for it, because there's nights there when you're giving up social life, you're giving up going on holidays with your friends, and professionally as well. You're probably held back where you can work, and you're going around this bubble, and then like they're amateurs, and then you come out and you go, okay, like I need to make sure from a career point of view, from a financial point of view, I'm going to be looked after here. But they're giving up so much to get the nights in the gym, all that, like that's why not every player makes it. I often look at players that are there under 14, under 16, mine or 21. This isn't easy. This is hard to actually get to a stage where you can go to an All-Ireland final and produce the results that these players produce. So like Jake Morris, the hours that he put in, along with all the other players, and working with Angela Walsh and the dietitian and all, like there's so many people working with them, and rightly so. But they'll give the advice. But the lads have to actually, they're setting their alarms in the morning, what they can eat, what they can't eat. They're living a professional life in an amateur organisation. And I think at times it's great. You look in and go, oh, I'd love to be a Tipperary hurler. It's great that they can do this. But you know what they're sacrificing outside of that, their friends probably going traveling during the summer, or you're in college and there's nights out where they're going and you're staying in and you're getting ready to go to the gym or setting your alarm early in the morning. So I always take hats off. In particular now, we probably hadn't as bad back then, but now the last number of years, it's just gone to a level where if you want to play at the top, at the top inter-county teams, there's a prize for it.
Yeah, and I suppose looking to the future, look, I'm one of those. It kind of annoys when I hear people, and it was already mentioned this week that a Tip haven't done back-to-backs in 64, 65. I just think All-Ireland's a too hard one to be focusing on that, and there's too many teams and too many contenders at the moment. I think the only time you can worry about that is if we're in the final next year, and you have to get back to the final first. But like Noel, it's the age profile of the squad is very good. There's no obvious retirements. I don't see Noel McGrath going anywhere. He's hurling too well. He's enjoying it too much. It'd be a nice story for him to finish hitting the last pint of the 2025 final, but I don't think Noel is interested in things like that. He says he's playing too well. And then potentially you're adding, there's a couple of guys off the under-20 panel, like the likes of, I would say, Adam Ryan or Cahill English. You could be bringing blood in them, getting them in. You don't know who's of the fringe panel is going to push up. I would think somebody like Shawnee Kennelly, it must have been an absolutely crushing disappointment last week when he was told he wasn't going to be on the 26th. I think he's the sort of guy who would use that disappointment to turn it into a positive and say to himself, I'm going to do everything possible that Liam Cahill can't drop me next year. And like he could be a guy that really comes to the fore next year. So like it has the potential going forward to be a good era for Tipperary if things go right.
Yeah, it has, Shane, and I suppose Liam and the lads are in the very fortunate position now that they have a lot of players at their disposal. You name checked a few of them there, and there's probably a few others as well who will come into the reckoning too, and who on the back of minor and under 20 successes in the last number of years deserve to get a chance. So I think like what that does then, Shane, is that players who are on the fringes, who weren't in the 26 and were in the 40, they're going to be looking over their shoulders. And there's no comfort zone there for them, those guys. They're going to be saying, right, if I want to be on the bus again next year, I'm going to have to step up in some shape or form. I'm going to have to prove what I can do. And I think there's a number of those guys in that category who they'll enjoy their All-Ireland, and rightly so. They've worked as hard as anybody to win their All-Ireland. But come next November or whenever, or actually probably come this weekend when the club championships start off, they've got to show that they have something to offer to that team. They clearly have, because they've been in the 40 and Liam has trusted them to keep them in the 40. Now they have to prove that they can stay in the 40 for next year. I think we're in a really good place. I think, did I see we're third favourites to win the All-Ireland next year? And that was the day after winning this year. Sorry?
Cork are the favourites. Man, I would have said maybe Limerick, but she's not Cork.
Yeah. Particularly,
I don't know how you pick it up from.
Yeah, particularly the crushing feeling that there is in Cork at the moment. Like, you know, I mean, I have a cousin working down in Cork, and he told me he went back down to work on Monday morning, and the vast majority of the flags and bunting and all that was gone down, had been taken down overnight almost. And I think Cork are in a difficult place. I don't think they've done themselves any favours by not having the homecoming and all that type of thing as well. They've kind of disconnected themselves from the general public. But look, that's their business. Our business now is looking forward and really can't wait to look forward. I'm really looking forward to next year already, you know.
Yeah, that's what Eamon, Noel mentioned the club championships, and I think that's the beauty of Cahill. Like he's a traditionalist in any ways, and like I think he'll give an opportunity to maybe one or two guys if they perform in the club championship. They're not the obvious under 20 guys that we know are coming on the conveyor belt, but the Andrew or the 25 or 26 year old, like they could come to the fore. I'd be thinking somebody like I would say Eddie Ryan is very similar to Andrew Ormond in a lot of respects. So if he has those type of players, if some couple of players have they're 23, 24, 25, a very good club championship, they'll get the call. And
yeah, and I like to live in the now. I'm not even thinking far ahead. I'm going to enjoy this moment with Tipperary. But you're like the club championship. That's actually where my mind is at the moment this weekend, and it kicking off. And I just think at the moment, just we're all loving hurling. I think every child that came out of Croke Park, boy and girl, are picking up the hurleys. I think we're going to have great crowds at the club championship now, which is it's brilliant. And I always look in at club players, and it's how you represent your club, your club jersey, because that's where it starts. You show leadership there and the field with your club. You might have never played inter-county Howe up long, but you go in there and have a good club championship, put your hand up. Liam Cahill won't ignore you. You won't be ignored, and it's great now through different social medias and club and all that I think we get to see more and more club matches, and like we have a brilliant club championship. I've said that for the last number of years. We tend to criticise GA and county boards and all that. I think it's just in our nature. Sometimes we like to give out, but I think our club championship in Tipperary, when the draws come out, you're kind of going, actually, there's no team you're kind of going, geez, I'd like that team, because any team on the day can take you in the senior club championship. And even if you park that, we've players come through that haven't played at the senior level that are actually, if it's Premier Intermediate, if it's junior, like through the development squads in Tipperary, they've put their hand up, which probably in the past some players might have been left behind. So lads will have different views in development squads and things like that. But I've looked at a number of development squads, 16, 14, 15, 16s, and we're seeing players that have played with clubs that traditionally you think you wouldn't have been thought about. A lot of, to be honest with you, with no disrespect, some clubs down in South Tip, and there's some brilliant players coming through there. So I think from a structural point of view, we highlight Limerick, what Limerick has done the last number of years. Don't underestimate what Tipperary, the structures Tipperary have put in from development squads to the club championship structure at the moment. We've put ourselves in a strong position because we've won minor, we've won 20s, and now we've won the senior All-Ireland. So we just need to make sure we don't devalue, which we'll never do in Tipperary, because we love our hurling, our club championship. And I think this weekend we're going to see great crowds at it.
I remember I saw I think I saw a photo online of, I think, Owen Conley. I think Wednesday night he was having a recovery session. So obviously one of these, like, I think he referenced it on an interview on Monday that he doesn't have a South Championship medal, or sorry, West Championship medal, and like they're going up against Clonoulty on Saturday evening. I'm sure there'll be a massive crowd at that, and we've three senior games on Sunday. And you mentioned I'm part of a Laura backroom team who has to try and deal with Darren McCarthy, so I hope he's had a good week, and if he wants to stay celebrate and work away, we won't say it ended against him. But I suppose before then, Eamon, we don't want this year to end, and we want the girls to get to Croke Park. We have a 20 All-Ireland one, we have the senior men's All-Ireland one. Minimum, we want to get to the senior Kamogie final. Playing Galway tomorrow Saturday at 3 o'clock. This group, a lot of them have lost 6 semi-finals in 7 years. But I was just reading some of the interviews in the Guardian this week that Joe Scully did, and none of them, they were all very positive. Like, they weren't reflecting on the past, that's done. This is another opportunity. And just get the sense of, maybe off the back of what the hurlers have achieved, that there's going to be no regrets this Saturday whatsoever. Like, they are going to absolutely leave everything behind. And I just think that there's a massive opportunity ahead of the group this Saturday.
Yeah, and they've done it all year. And I think you're right. You can't look into the past. And in fairness to the girls, like, since Kilkenny game, they've been like focused, obviously, and nothing else, only a semi-final. And they're not thinking ahead. I know it's cliches and all that, you're playing there now, but like it's a huge game against Galway, and a lot of fronts, right? Because, and you can't, it's the elephant in the room, you can't ignore it. The last number of years we've lost tight semi-finals, but I think the difference this year, and don't underestimate it, we went into a number of semi-finals the last number of years, big victories over Limerick, Clare, certain teams that just weren't up to the standard. The Kilkenny game in Croke Park the last day out, to bring it extra time and to be getting stronger and stronger in extra time, that's invaluable for the team going in on Saturday. And I just want to call out, because all boats rise, and you talk about momentum and support. Like, I can't urge enough Tipperary supporters to come down and support the girls, because I spoke about the commitment the guys give. The girls give equally the same commitment, the sacrifices they've given. And it's only the last number of years I've really got involved in the Camogie and going to matches. The standard that's out there at the moment, and any Tipperary supporter got into the match before the senior Kilkenny match to see it. It's second on. We have players out there, the likes of, I know we talk about Karen Kendi, Roisin Howard, Corinne Blair, Claudia McIntyre. I could go on and on and on. their fitness levels, the skill levels of these players. So I'm actually really looking forward to 3 o'clock on Saturday, because I just think we've all the tip flags out there. Go out to the front of your house, pick up the tip flag, get in your car and go down and support the girls, because you won't be disappointed. There's one thing you will get with this group of players, and you talk about what Tipperary supporters want. This group of players will die in their boots out in the field. They will give absolutely everything. And the Galway defeat last year, albeit it was disappointing, just the way these girls are building for this game. We're in the semi-final. Everything that's taken place in the past take place in the past, and you can talk about results in the past, but it's going to be a brilliant game. But I'm quietly confident that the girls are in the right mindset, headspace, and ready to take on Galway. And I think hopefully at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening we'll be looking forward to it, and another All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I suppose as Eamon mentioned, like the test they got from Kilkenny in the quarter final, I'd agree. I think it's a great way to be going into the semi final. Okay, they probably struggled a bit in the first half. Kilkenny outplayed them, but you could see as the second half it grew, and then to go, was it 6 down in extra time or 3 down in extra time, and then to go rattle off 1-6 without reply, like just getting stronger. And Caoimhe McCarthy and was outstanding, and Mairead Evison was outstanding. Like it just, and this is even without Clodagh Quirk injured and Emer McGrath injured. Like just girls have stepped up this year, and like Jean Kelly coming off the bench. I'm sure that's probably one that's going to be rattling your heads as you're picking a team. Like, do you hold her back or do you let her loose, and we'll see tomorrow. But like it's a massive opportunity, Noel, for the girls tomorrow.
It is, Shane, and I wish him and all the lads the very best, and the girls as well. But I suppose, probably what epitomised it for me was that, Clodagh McIntyre hadn't had a great game in ordinary time. Things didn't work out for her, and she came in and rattled that goal. I mean, as good a goal as you'll see in Croke Park, the way she took it on and buried it. And I suppose it kind of emphasised the sort of talent that she has as well, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of it as well. But I being honest with you, I thought the game was gone, because it was a slow burn in ordinary time. It took us a long time to kind of get into a little bit of a flow, and then we turn around in extra time. And as you know, extra time goes very fast. Those halves go really, really fast. But again, it probably goes back to the whole thing of spirit and character. And the leaders in the team really stood up, Eamon, I think, didn't they? They really kind of grabbed this thing by the scruff of the neck and helped to see us out. And like, it was Kilkenny we were beaten, and Eamon rightly alluded to the fact that that was a test. That was a hell of a test, and I think the girls will take a lot of confidence going into the semi-final now on Saturday, and hopefully we'll get a big crowd there. Because they deserve it. As Eamon said, they put in as much work as the lads do, and it's often almost dismissed as a cliche, but they do. And I've seen a lot of it myself. I've seen quite a bit of training during the year, and they really, really work hard. But Shane and Eamon, just leave you on a great comment I heard over the weekend. I was making my way back down towards the car after the match on Sunday. We're passing a busy pub there, a lot of Tip and Cork supporters in the place, and a lone wolf from Cork in a red jersey started shouting, "Rebels, rebels, rebels." And one of the Tip lads said, "I'm talking about rebels, what are you talking about?" And your man was giving him guff back, the Cork man, and he said, "Tipperary, another one in a row for you, I suppose." And the Tip man says to him, "Listen," he says, "be quiet, you," he said. "If that Cork full forward line was in Bale and Blah, Michael Collins would be president today." He said, "I thought it was brilliant, But I think they kind of emphasise and highlight the great banter that there is between Cork and Tipperary supporters as well,
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to that. And I say I've had a busy couple of weeks with 2 supplements, but I have the energy in me to do a couple more now. Please God, we will if the girls get to that final. And just before we wrap up, Eamon, you mentioned the club championship starting this weekend. I know your Brackens are awaiting a quarter final, but just some juicy ties and juicy potential matchups you're looking at. I say the West, you could have, depending on where Robert Dial plays, if he's in the backs, he could be Merck and Rushing O'Donoghue. If he's in the forwards, Owen Connolly could be Merck and him. You have Rhys Shelley pucking up, trying to avoid the McGraths for Mike Harkey against Lockmore on Saturday evening. I think you have Nina and Killer One going. You could have Craig Morgan and Jake Morris on Sunday evening in Dala. Maybe Willie Connors and Alan Tynan going at it in Temple Area on Sunday afternoon. So it's like it'll be quickly forgotten. Like, we're going into a very, very good club championship where it's very much wide open. I know we'll probably get into the teeth of it over the next couple of weeks before the group stage starts. I suppose we get a good read over the next 2 weekends with the divisionals about who's going well and maybe who's in contention.
Yeah, and like, don't underestimate, in fairness to club players, they've been training away in the background, so they've been really, really looking forward to this weekend. And like the club championship, albeit when we get into the overall championship, but the divisionals, like, I can speak from Mid Tipperary, Andy Club Mid Tipperary. You want to win a mid championship. Noel, you know with Sarsfields, I know with the Brackens there, it means so much. And you look over the north, like the teams in the north, what that'll mean to them. And then this year with Cashel, Canalty, like the West has probably struggled a bit the last number of years. So there is, like, it's the one medal there to kick off the year. Like, you want to win your division, and there is different views on the divisional championship. I'm a massive promoter and supporter of divisional championship, and I think this weekend, I think we all just looking forward to going back out. And look, it's great for the kids now to get to see some of their heroes wearing the club jersey and what the club jersey means to them. And I think that message can never be lost. Tipperary, we're all Tipperary people. We love Tipperary, but it all starts with your club. And you'll see the McGraths putting on that Lockmore jersey and what it means to them, and the players you mentioned there. That's where actually the pride is. So I think, from a supporter point of view, I think we'll see huge crowds. I think you mentioned a number of fixtures there. I think there's some juicy ones there that could kick off the club championship for us in the right light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose as much as it's important for players who want to win a mid-championship, Noel, the fact that the county championship is so even and the groups are so tight, if you have a preliminary quarter-final in your back pocket just in case you didn't finish in the top two, like that's a huge carrot over the next fortnight.
It sure is.
Takes the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah, it sure is. And like you look at one of Clonoulty or Cashel are going to have it with one game. They know that they're going to be.
I think Clonoulty are in a group of Killadangan and Holy Cross and Toom, like, so there's only two of them, but the four is going to come out of that group, like, so.
Not a simple group, you know. In fact, it's a feature of all the groups. Like, you look at all the groups, they're difficult ones to call, like, you know, and that's what you want. You know, Eamon mentioned earlier on about the structure that has been put in place in Tipperary across the board at club level and with development squads and schools and all that kind of thing. And it goes back to what we're saying about the club championship too, because ultimately that's where Liam Carroll is going to be looking to see can he identify other players who might make a difference to the squad. But leaving that aside, the amount of people who will go to see their club games, and you know, you'll have, I presume there'll be broadcasts on Club or two for people who can't get to the matches, which is tremendous as well. Like there's some really, really juicy games there this weekend, you know, really juicy games. And we're on again then, I think, in mid-tip anyway, at least I think we're on again on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, and then at the weekend again, which is brilliant, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to it. And I suppose we'll wrap it up at that. Now, thanks for your time, Noel and Eamon. Wish you the best of luck against Galway at the weekend. And please God, we're all heading back up to Crow Park on the 10th of August. It's the Kamogie final day. And we'll try and do the double. We repeat of what, remember 2001, maybe when you won the Hurler the week after. The crowd that went back up for the Kamogie the week after was incredible. I know we had a serious Kamogie team at the time, but I think this team will get a massive following if they're going back up again in a couple of weeks' time, and please God they are. But that's about it for this week's. That was very, very happy Tipp Cast. My thanks to Eamon and to Noel. We'll be back next week to wrap up the Kamogie and talk about the club championship. Bye for now.